Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of video games. We cover all kinds from the mainstream to the indie, so I hope you enjoy your stay, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. Fortuno has been investigating the appearance of Pandaemonium in the ethereal sea, and he's made a few discoveries that he thinks you should hear about, so you and Claudian scientists head to the Aetioscope to meet up with the man. Professor Claudian had disappeared when he went into Azizla alone, which was a good way to die since the place isn't exactly safe. His airship was found near the Etherochemical Research Facility, but he wasn't anywhere to be seen. There were signs that he forced his way into the facility though. Fortuno's people followed his trail, but it ended in a very unusual way. Both Claudian and the part of the place that he'd wandered into had vanished entirely. His people think that the part of Azizla that disappeared reappeared in the ethereal sea and was turned into the version of Pandaemonium that's in the present day, which means Claudian may very well be inside of it. Fortuno thinks it's worth the risk to send someone into the place to find the missing professor, and by someone he means you. But there's another not so small issue that you'll have to deal with first. A creature from inside of the prison came out, and Fortuno's people saw the thing start eating the ether around it. Considering the fact that the ethereal sea is full of the souls of the dead, messing with it could ruin the entire cycle of rebirth, which means it needs to be dealt with quickly. After that, you'll be able to search for Claudian. The memory crystal was found in Claudian's ship, so Fortuno gives it to you just in case you can use it for something. Nemgigi thinks you may actually have a harder time dealing with the monsters in Pandaemonium this go around, mainly because you don't have Themis there to summon phantom warriors to fight with you. But what she doesn't know is you've had the ability to summon people for a very long time now, so you head off to face the monster. This thing looks like one of the monstrous creatures from the Promised Neverland, and it's not exactly happy that you messed up its meal. It tries really hard to kill you for that, but you prove yourself to be the more deadly predator, and you put it down, freeing all of the ether-rich souls that it had consumed. As soon as the thing is destroyed, a woman reveals that she was watching your fight, and she was eager to see if you were just as strong as she had heard. And it's not just any woman, it's Athena, La Habrea's wife and the former leader of Pandaemonium. She's also the person who made this new place, right in the heart of the ethereal sea. She wasn't exactly expecting to run into you in this time period, but that might work out for the best considering all that you managed to accomplish when you stepped into the past. She seems to be way too aware of your exploits, and considering the fact that you learned that she was in fact completely nuts, the Warrior of Light is prepped and ready to attack her despite the fact that she claims to not be a bad guy. She's done some things that were questionable at best, but they were all in the name of science, and since she was reborn, she plans on continuing those experiments. She'd like to do that without violence, and she thinks that if you hear her out, you might see that her experiments are worth completing. The Warrior of Light is a tad curious, especially about how the woman managed to be reborn at all, so she holds off on the stabbing and lets her talk. Athena had always planned on using the souls of the ethereal sea for her work, since the place provides all of the materials that she needs, but she hadn't planned on finding someone as useful as Professor Claudian. She does have him, but she's not gonna hurt him since he's a part of what she needs to finally become a god. The more she talks, the closer she gets to making the Warrior of Light stab her, and she sees that, so she decides to summon some people who can tell you more about her and her work in a way that you'll be more receptive to. And since you have the memory stone that Claudian had been studying, she could use that to summon your teachers. That particular stone holds the memories of both La Habrea and Erythonius, and she uses her powers to give those memories physical form. That way they can explain why she's trying to become a god. She wants you to understand because you have a part to play too, and she figures things will go more smoothly if you just decide to cooperate. She teleports away, leaving you with Erythonius and La Habrea, who both have a lot of questions for you since they have no idea where they are or why. So you take them back to the Aetioscope where you can talk without worrying about getting attacked by anything. The two ancients don't know how long it's been since they last saw you, but the fact that they remember you means that the memories that were stored in that particular crystal came sometime after you went through Pandaemonium on Elpis. Erythonius remembers you telling him about the crystal, but he never would have guessed that the memories that it held belonged to him and his dad. Finding out that you were from the future does clear up a few mysteries though, especially since he had looked for you after a while but couldn't find a single trace of you. He remembers the final days hitting the world, but he doesn't know how the event ended. Seeing that your future exists lets him know that something survived, but he wants to know if his people did. That's not exactly a simple yes or no question, and La Habrea doesn't feel like wasting time getting you to explain it all, since Athena being there may not let the world survive anyway. While the two ancients look like they have physical bodies, other than their mind and memories, they don't have any actual power. Athena made them so they could talk to you, not help you fight. But honestly, even doing that wasn't going to be all that helpful to her plans, since she should have been well aware of the fact that her husband, who outright killed her to stop her plans in the first place, wouldn't have anything good to say about what she's doing. He definitely wouldn't try to convince you to work with her, so I have to say that her pulling their memories out of the crystal was not smart at all. Erythonius doesn't know how she knew that they had worked with you in the first place, since she was extremely dead at the time, but La Habrea figures that she must have made a way for her to either monitor the goings-on in Pandaemonium even after her death, or she'd found a way to get the info after she was reborn. Either way, she knows more about current events than they do, which is never a good position to be in. So La Habrea wants Claudian's people to tell him everything they've learned about this modern-day Pandaemonium, once they stop hiding in the corner. When you finally convince them to come over and talk, Nemgigi admits that she's excited to talk to the ancients in the semi-flesh, but she is a little scared. A 9-foot-tall La Habrea is kind of intimidating, but since they don't have the power to do anything more than talk, Erythonius doesn't think anyone should be scared of them at all. Turns out being disintegrated by the power of an ancient wasn't what Nemgigi was scared of anyway. She was just afraid that she wouldn't have enough time to ask all of the questions that she wanted to. But as long as she's willing to share her information with them, La Habrea is perfectly fine with answering any of her questions. After he tells you everything he can about Athena and her mission to become a god, which would have ended with everyone on Etheirys being killed. Athena believes a god should be able to create souls at will, and she wants that power. That's why she decided to do her last experiments in the Ethereal Sea. The place is a limitless pool of ether that she can draw from. Granted, drawing on that ether could put an end to all life, but she doesn't really care. Even knowing that, seeing his mother's face still reminded Erythonius of how much he loved her. Granted, he still plans on working against her as best he can. While they put their information together, they all think it's time for you to get started searching through the prison. Before you leave, Erythonius takes the memory crystal from you, just in case it has any more useful tidbits stored inside of it. While he helps you get into Pandaemonium, La Habrea asks Nemgigi if she knows anything about something called Auracite. She knows a bit about it from the legends of Ivalice and from the things she's heard about La Habrea the Ascian. She almost mentions his name, but considering the fact that she's talking to a priest sundering La Habrea, she catches herself in a way that lets the man know that she was clearly about to say his name in connection with the black Auracite called the Heart of Sabik. Apparently La Habrea recognizes the name, but he figured that it would have been lost after all of these years. That means it'll likely be an issue in the near future, but first you have to deal with whatever you find inside of Pandaemonium. You'll have to clear out an area alone before the two ancients can help you search the place, so you head in to get started. The first thing you find is the last thing you expected to see. Themis. He's not actually Themis, but something Athena made using a soul and some magic. He's just as real as La Habrea and Erythonius, but he hasn't gotten dumber because he immediately figures out that he's in the future. Athena revived herself somehow, and you've come there to stop her. He expected no less, but there is a problem. He was made to serve Athena, and he can't resist her, so the two of you will have to fight in the not too distant future. It's not something the Warrior of Light wants to do, but Themis reminds her that he's just an illusion, so it's not all that big of a deal. Even though she programmed him to fight you, Themis is still willing to spill Athena's secrets because she's apparently really bad at the whole making loyal servants thing. And he lets you know that she has a new vessel to replace Erythonius, and she's gathering souls to modify her essence. The problem is those souls aren't all that strong, so she's decided that the Warrior of Light would be far more useful to her if she can figure out why you're so strong despite your thin ether. She made something to test you so she could watch and learn the secret of your strength. And I'm not gonna lie, I think she has a whole lot more faith in your abilities than you do, because the woman's not making you fight some random creature. She put a soul inside of Pandaemonium itself so the whole building can fight you. Themis expects you to beat the thing pretty easily, then after that the two of you will throw hands for the second time. Athena could have made the living fortress be a little less creepy looking, but she was probably more interested in power over appearance. But she didn't give it enough of either because the Warrior of Light and her summoned warriors destroy it. With the walking fortress beaten, Themis shows back up, and he's quite impressed by your handiwork as usual. Your victory opened Pandaemonium's last gate, and that's where he'll wait for you. Erythonius and La Habrea show up right as he leaves, so La Habrea wants you to tell him what the man said so you all can figure out what to do next. Once you tell him about Athena's plan to make you fight Themis, he's not all that surprised. The boy was one of the most magically gifted ancients, so of course she would use him if she could, which means she probably snatched his soul out of the ethereal sea and used Themis' memories to build the perfect puppet. Erythonius is more shocked to hear that Athena actually managed to bring Pandaemonium to life. The fact that she could do that means she's almost at the end of her research, but after trading notes with Nemgigi, they figured out a way to stop her, and they think the Heart of Sabik is the key. The Warrior of Light recognizes the name, which she should, since La Habrea had used it to power the Ultima weapon and try to kill you with the Ultima spell. The heart is something that Athena made during her time with the words of La Habrea before Pandaemonium even existed. She had brought a crystal that she said she found somewhere to them, and the thing held a lot of power. She called it Auracite and started studying it, and eventually she created the Heart of Sabik from it. Athena never told them where she found the original crystal, so they figured that it was from another star. It wasn't until later that they figured out that the Auracite enhances the desires of anyone who comes in contact with it, which would explain why Athena went a little overboard with her work after she found it. But by the time La Habrea had locked the Auracite away, Athena had already gone so far down her crazy path that he had to kill her. After that, he took the Heart of Sabik and decided to guard it himself, since the thing held some of the densest and most destructive ether he'd ever seen. It was all but impossible to study, but he thinks Athena may have done something to it to make it that way so no one would know that she had stored her memories inside of it. If she had set up a way to give her memories physical form, similar to how she drew La Habrea and Erythonius out of their stone, that could explain how she could have been reborn, but it doesn't explain what made her come back at this very moment. And that's something that we'll cover next time. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.